lines, I think, or something like that it was called. Our moderator will be with us shortly, but asked us to get started here. I'm Josette Sheeran, the head of the World Food Program. I've just returned from Haiti, where I've been living in a tent with our staff there. You have here on the panel one other person who's just returned from Haiti, but organizations that are very active right now in trying to stand with the people of Haiti during this extraordinary catastrophe. And I see many people in the audience who are there with Haiti also, and I've met the people from your organizations in Port-au-Prince doing really heroic work. Do I need to introduce everyone? Let me just do that. Many of you know Bekele Geleta, the head of the International Federation of the Red Cross Red Crescent. Welcome. Catherine Bragg, who's the deputy head of OCHA, who's the humanitarian coordinator in the UN system. We also have the fabulous Tom Arnold from Concern Worldwide, who is always there in every disaster doing such wonderful work with his organization. And Denis O'Brien from Digicel, which is, I guess, the largest cell phone distributor in Haiti, but has just returned from Port-au-Prince. And his company's been taking very generous action there in Haiti. I was asked to open just with a few remarks from my experience in Haiti, and then to turn to Denis, and then to have Bekele and Tom comment. And then Catherine to wrap up, and then we'll open it up for discussion with all of you. The World Food Program, as you may know, was founded in 1963. We have been on the front lines of every major catastrophe and disaster and war zone since then. We are fundamentally responsible for reaching people with food. And last year we reached 102 million people every day in Darfur with our partners. We do everything in partnership. 60% of our work is through partners such as Concern and World Vision and others. We reach 4 million people a day with food in Darfur. And if you can imagine, have been reaching up to half the population of Somalia, 40% of the population of Afghanistan with food, in addition to many other places. I say that to say, to give emphasis to the statement I'm about to make, that according to all of our frontline logistics experts and operational experts, this is not our largest disaster, but our most complicated situation we've ever confronted. We have never been in an urban catastrophe of this size, with the density of population and the total loss of the infrastructure. And so we're very much in the supply chain business. Saving lives is about getting a supply chain up and running, and virtually every step of that supply chain is a nightmare. And so we can talk a little bit about that. I was struck by the heroism of the Haitian people there. Their response is one of great dignity and kindness. Often we see in these disasters the best of humanity coming out. And you will see that if you were in Port-au-Prince right now. But also humanitarian heroes. 90% of my staff is homeless. They have lost their homes. They're living on the streets and then delivering food. Most of them have lost loved ones. One of our key leaders buried his son in the garden and was delivering food hours later. So it is unique in the fact that virtually every party that needs to respond there has lived through the tragedy of enormous proportions. As you know, the Brazilian troops that lead MINUSTA there, the peacekeeping troops, lost so many loved ones. The Jordanian troops I've went and met with there, lost so many loved ones, and then nothing to say of the government itself. I drove through Port-au-Prince, walked through Port-au-Prince, needed to see for myself the pillars of the symbols of Haiti and see them for myself. And I went to the presidential palace, almost like Tinker Toys, just torn apart. The Justice Ministry in dust, the Parliament in dust, the market, which was such a symbol of hope there, as Haiti was really beginning to trade more and look more to opening its businesses in dust. the Parliament, I think I mentioned, in dust, and then the Congress, the hotel where the United Nations was, just completely, that tower gone. So all of those, and the cathedral, just gone. So all of those very critical symbols of stability and hope and building, so affected, and the response is not to scale yet. In WFP, we talk about the WFP machine clicking in. That's our huge global logistics effort. We've thrown everything to get this right at Haiti and scale up. We've gotten 10 million meals out. I think we all can tell these stories, but the need is at least 2 million a day. People that really don't have access to food. There are some informal markets cropping up, as you'll see almost anywhere. People begin to try to respond, but people don't have cash. Every single bank branch was closed. Bit by bit, this will get better, but we think we'll be in there longer and deeper in the emergency phase than we initially predicted. I've been putting out a global call for these types of meals ready to eat because at least we're finding in the camps people don't have an ability to cook. And this type of product that we're buying from France, it's a supplementary plumpy, it's a sweet paste filled with nutrition that children can just open and squeeze in their mouth. This is life-saving and can protect the brains and bodies of young children who aren't getting adequate nutrition, which they are not right now. And even in El Salvador, where we've been making biscuits for children for school, El Salvadorian producers are ramping up production so we can get these biscuits in, high-energy biscuits, fortified with nutrition. This is more expensive. It's actually not more difficult than bringing in bags of rice and beans and oil, but critical that we get these in addition to these. So some of the complexities I wanted to touch on. I met extensively with the President and Prime Minister. They're deeply engaged. I find a government very, very strongly leading what they want built and how they want the response to go in Haiti. And they are operating in a courtyard. They don't have a meeting room, and every morning hold a meeting outside. WFP, through our logistics cluster work for the United Nations, which we lead, we're able to get them cell phones. We're trying to get them snap together offices so they have a safe place to meet. That's the level of destruction and confusion there. And of course, there's no accounting for who's missing yet. There's about half the police force has not shown up yet. People don't know if they're gone or just can't make it there or dealing with personal family tragedies. Anyway, I come back with that mixture, very strong and very potent, of just sadness, determination, and hope because of the incredible spirit of everyone who's gathered there and determination. I think I now will turn this over to Denis, who has also just come back from Haiti.
Thank you very much, Josette. And can I just sympathise with the various arms of the UN and the people that you've lost? We lost 8 people, but your numbers, the number of people that you've lost is just missing is up to 200. So just our sympathies. And I suppose I made my second visit since the earthquake this week, and one of the things that really concerns me are 2 things. One is criticism of the effort on the ground, which I think is uncalled for. And not to put a tooth in it, if you take what the French development minister said last week, I thought he was totally out of order. And the last thing we need at the moment is for people to be so critical when people are working so hard on the ground. And it is a massive struggle for both the US Army, but also for all the different organizations under the UN umbrella, for the Red Cross concern, everybody trying to do things that maybe they'd never been able, they never had to do before. And I think the European Union and their response has been paltry. And I'm from Ireland, and I'm very much a European as such. And so something needs to be done there. And I think a lot of credit needs to be given to the US military in the way they've reacted and the work that they've done. there are obviously issues on the ground, and I could see them, on the this week, particularly in food distribution, because if people do not know when they're going to get food and they get food infrequently, say every 3 or 4 days, well, obviously people are going to get very, very upset, and that there is a problem about security. And because of now nearly 400 camps springing up around the capital, small camps, maybe 30, 40 people, larger camps in the thousands, it's very, very difficult to get the aid and the water. Sometimes the food comes but no water comes. So, all of that, we can see improvements on the ground. I have 900 colleagues there that work for Digicel, and our first thing was to get our network up, but probably most of our efforts was looking after our staff, because with 900 staff, literally most of them have been touched. All of them have been touched in one way. I met one man who showed up for work having buried 5 members of his family. So we have 300 staff at the moment who have no home. So, all of these things are coming together to create, you just don't know what to do as such. But bit by bit, things are getting better. And I would say, in the next 2 weeks, you will see another real improvement here. There's a couple of problems, though, and that is money, because the banks only just recently opened. When I was there on Monday, it's like a run on a bank. There's literally thousands of people outside every bank and every money exchange, and all the remittances are piling up, but the banks don't have the cash to actually give out. So that is an issue. There also is the issue for people, not alone of people in camps, they're also outside their homes, because there's a loved one or loved ones inside the ruin of the house. So they're actually on their bedding out in the front of the house on the road. And they're afraid to leave because their house will get looted. And there's no help really there to clear housing and that. So, a lot of these houses are rental accommodation as well. So it's very, very complicated, because Port-au-Prince is mainly a rental market, not an owner-occupier market. A lot of areas like outside Port-au-Prince are struggling as well, particularly Jacmel, Tigua and Lijon. They're not getting, as much food and water as they need at the moment. So, you have all these displaced people, and in their eyes, they probably feel absolutely hopeless. But I couldn't imagine, if this was in Ireland, we'd be all rioting. In Haiti, they're so dignified that, they have no food, no water, and they've lost their family. And they are stoic in the way they're actually coping with this. And many of the people are absolutely traumatized. I met people who were traumatized because of their loss. For example, in our office, people won't go up through the building. We have 11 floors of a building. They won't go beyond the second floor because they're afraid of another aftershock. In terms of medical work, one of the things that I was told yesterday by a doctor was that amputees, there's been thousands of people who've lost their limbs, but the 2 companies in Port-au-Prince that used to make prostheses are gone. So it's just another small thing that needs to be fixed as such. And there's a real need for wheelchairs as well. And when I met a number of the ministers basically it's a small, it used to be a court, I think. The other day I met 4 or 5 ministers of the cabinet. The cabinet secretary said to me, Denis, he says, we need money, because all the money that has been raised around the world today has gone into the NGO effort. And they need money to pay policemen. Policemen will not go back to work because they won't get paid. There's 60,000 teachers that need to be paid. And the government actually needs a credit facility from the IMF to actually pay people, because teachers will move if they're reasonably well educated. They will find another job and move away from teaching. Civil servants, if they're not paid, they'll move away from that job as well. And to compound all this, there are approximately 500,000 children that are not going to school at the moment. So when I met the Minister for Education, I said, look, we want to go and build 30 schools. And he said, look, great, but I actually need office facilities for my 500 staff. and I need my building cleared. There's 50 people in it under the rubble at the moment. And when I met him 2 hours later, he's actually under a tree in the grounds of his offices having a meeting with all his senior civil servants to get school back open on the 1st of March. So we've been trying to work with him to try to get a facility, a tent even, for 500 of his civil servants. Then the biggest issue then is schools. There are 8,000 schools. A lot of them are small private schools, but you pay maybe $3 a month to send your child there. So they're not like fully fledged private schools as we would know it, maybe in the Western world. So they're all in ruins. 90% of the schools are in ruins. And he's saying we need tents to actually put children into and divide up tents and have classrooms in tents. And we worked it out because we got on the phone, tried to buy tents immediately, and we are. But these tents, a big tent, 10,000 square feet, that you could probably put 12 to 13 classrooms in, costs $130,000 without a floor. So when you multiply all these numbers out, the complexity of the problems facing Haiti at the moment and the challenges that these organizations have had to grapple with. We're a commercial, we're a business, but we're trying to do our bit, is just absolutely enormous. And that's why, the international community really have to dig deep to help and to come forward. And it's all about capacity. If, the Minister for Education lost his top civil servants last Tuesday week. So we need to put in capacity in the short term and also train Haitians to replace these civil servants. And that's where, instead of people criticizing, people should actually come forward. And that's why the European Union and all the member states need to say, we will do one piece of this. We will do maybe education, or we will do social service, or we will do sanitation, or break up the problem and divide it up instead of everybody criticizing each other. And to make a promise of 400 million euros is terrific, but between the cup and the lip that could be 5 or 10 years, and everything is now. I mean, in China when they had an earthquake, Beijing didn't get the brunt of it. They didn't get any of it. So the government stayed in place and they were to coordinate the aid, coordinate everything, the rescue, everything. But the whole of Port-au-Prince is gone. The Ministry for Justice is gone. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Interior, the tax. This government will not be able to collect tax for 6 months. Now, companies will they will collect the tax and give it to the government, responsible companies. But there is just the whole shape of government is not there. So I think we should be praising the efforts of the UN. We should be praising the efforts of the United States and USAID and everybody else involved, and everybody should get behind it, but also talk to our politicians in each of our home countries to say, okay, what are we going to take responsible for? Because Haiti has been a tragedy, since it got independence in 1804. And
Dennis, if we could wind up.
Stop.
Because we have a half an hour. So,
okay.
Would you like to finish a few sentences? I didn't mean to stop
done.
you in your tracks. Okay.
No, I'm done. Thank you
Sorry.
for stopping me.
No. Not that we're passionate about the subject up here, Bekele, and let's try to leave at least half the session for a dialogue here.
Okay.
Thanks.
Well, thank you, Josette. Well, I went to Haiti, came back Saturday evening. Before I went to Haiti, by sheer coincidence, just a few days before, I was reading on Haiti. A positive change had started to take place in Haiti, although every image that Haiti has had been negative. A positive change had started taking place. The UN Economic Commission for Latin America and Caribbean had ranked the economic development rates of the region. Haiti ranks 4th from the top. Okay, in 2009. That was a good, positive start of change. Just the Red Cross Haiti Red Cross had 115 branches in the country and 10,000 volunteers. This was before the disaster. Now, I'll tell you about the Red Cross because there is no estimate, sufficient estimate yet about the economy, but it is estimated at 4 billion. The Red Cross, it is left with just above 20% of its capacity due to this earthquake. You can imagine the degree of disaster. Now, my president and myself went to Haiti. We were in Dominican Republic, we were in Haiti, and also we were in Panama. All these places we discussed about Haiti. Essentially, we went there to see for ourselves the degree of the destruction, to talk with authorities where and how they are going to take the reconstruction to, and then also to guide the Red Cross activities, give direction to the Red Cross activities there. Now, I'll just tell you, I don't go to the destruction of the property, the death, and the wounded. I mean, I have not seen in any disaster so many people coming to the street, loitering on the street aimlessly. One doesn't have to look much to see the pain, the anger, the frustration, the want in the eyes of these people. I mean, it's a terrible tragedy. I was extremely emotional there, extremely. Now, of course, we discussed with our people, we discussed with government authorities, we met with the head of state, we met with the prime minister, we met with the first lady, we met with a number of ministers, and we have attended their meetings. We have, of course, discussed at length with our own people. Now, what came to my mind is, why is it that nature hits most of the time at where the human preparedness is least? This includes Katrina in the United States. Now, the major disasters are hits where the human being is least prepared. It is really surprising. Haiti is poor, the poorest in that region, and it's Haiti that is hit by this kind of disaster. Now, three things we discussed there, and in Dominican Republic, the Dominican Republic president had convened a meeting of governments, World Bank, the UN system. We were invited into that. I don't go into the outcomes of that. But what I can say is governments are very much willing and very much committed to support Haiti to come out of this disaster. Not only that, they are also willing to support Haiti in a big way in economic reconstruction. Now, how much of it would materialize, it is yet to be seen. But it was a very, very positive meeting. Now, what we thought about is, what can the Red Cross do in the short run, in the relief phase? What can the Red Crescent do in the recovery phase, reconstruction phase? But at the same time, what can we do in such a way that the Haitian population feels it is them who are reshaping their future? It's not something that is imposed from outside on them. Now, this is very important because the Haitian president said in Dominican Republic that development will not be imported from abroad. This is a very interesting statement of the president. Now, the Red Cross, I don't go to much detail. We have 20 specialized units. We call it the Emergency Response Unit in place. Actually, the 21st is going today. Okay. Now, this deals with, we have a Norwegian, Canadian, Israeli hospital which has 70 beds, which is a fully fledged hospital, which can do any kind of operation. This is a temporary hospital, specialized hospital that Red Cross, Red Crescent has put together. We have primary health facilities, 3 of them that are working in Port-au-Prince, but at the same time in the areas. We have 2 mass water purification systems that are in place. These are now providing 500,000 liters of water per day. Now, a lot has been done in terms of reaching people. We reach 1,000 patients per day, for example, in the health facilities we have sent in. We work very closely with the government. We work very closely with the National Red Cross. We work as a movement. This is International Committee of Red Cross. This is the International Federation of Red Cross, Red Crescent, which I represent, and the national societies that have put up these 21 specialized teams together. These teams come from all over the world. These teams are manned by 200 expertise now in Haiti. For the recovery, we have started work on it already, but we are in the planning stage. But we will be planning very carefully with the others. Okay, I will be rounding it up. The challenge very quickly. The biggest challenge is coordination, which I hope Catherine will come to, because the UN has to play a major role in coordination.
Thank you, Bekele. Tom, and then Catherine.
Thank you. Well, I maybe start by making a couple of brief introductory comments. The first one relates to and connects with what Josette and Denis has spoken about, just the sheer scale of the destruction that has happened there. The physical infrastructure, the human and governance infrastructure is enormous. And therefore, I think I would very much connect with Denis's comment that some of the criticism about slow aid delivery here is, to put it mildly, a bit simplistic. And I think needs to be put in that context. Very much agree with Josette's comment about the extraordinary both heroism and dignity that is shown by the people. The other piece of context is from a Concern point of view, just a little background. Concern has been working there for the past 16 years. Among the program is across the country, but specifically in Port-au-Prince, working in 2 of the main slums, accounting for about 350,000 people. And so therefore there is a background to respond. And some of the work that we were doing there was some very interesting work on trying to facilitate almost a peace process, or certainly a conflict resolution process between some of the gangs in those slums, using, interestingly enough, some experience from the Northern Ireland peace process. And that had been making some real progress, and we got to the point where we were talking in the last 6 months about a whole program of small and medium-scale industry. So very much connecting with the point that in the past year in particular, Haiti was becoming a place where there was progress being made and some bit of confidence coming back. So what needs to be done now? Obviously, the most immediate needs, when I was there, it was the weekend after the earthquake, I was struck by some of the people talking on the ground about some of obviously recovering the bodies and dealing with all that terrible aspect had to be done. But some of the concerns they had was that in the immediate aftermath of the tragedy, people, in order to get rid of, to bury bodies quickly and avoid public health risks, buried in shallow graves. Concern about what this might mean in a month's time when the rainy season starts. Obviously, basic needs like water, getting that into place has been a major priority. And now the food issue here, and this is where we connect with WFP's efforts. There's still not enough, as Josette said, there's not enough people getting food. There are scarcities there are tensions rising, and an absolutely major priority has to be a general distribution of food as quickly as possible. That will probably involve use of the military in order for it to happen, but that needs to be done. After that, I think when we get down to more, if we do get to more targeting of food distribution, that's where I think the NGOs do come into play. The question of getting income back into people's hands is of enormous importance. One of the priorities the concern is placing is getting a cash for work scheme implemented. We'll be starting very quickly, connected with for the men, the cleaning up of some of the areas, and that very much connected with our whole water and sanitation program. Also, part of the cash for work will be to get some capital back into the hands of women, 10,000 women who will be given a small grant of $75 to get the small businesses going again. The issue of education is, as Denis very rightly said, of critical importance. I mean, I don't certainly have a blueprint in my head as to what needs to be done, but the sheer fact of 500,000 children who are not at school and arrangements needing to be put in place, wherever that is done over the coming months, has to be a priority. And then the final comment I would make is an issue about, and perhaps it leads into Catherine's contribution, the whole issue of coordination here is of critical importance. There are a very large number of agencies, both governmental and non-governmental, at work in Haiti. I think we need to seriously draw some of the lessons that were to be drawn from the tsunami, when a lot of people descended to help. A lot of them didn't help, and I think there is the UN is faced with a real challenge here to make sure that coordination works as well as possible. And some of the more, I would say, serious and well-established NGOs have a key responsibility in this regard as well. So they're the comments I would make for the beginning, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of room later on for comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Can I just have anyone representing organizations that are active in Haiti and trying to help in Haiti raise your hands? Okay, good. During the tsunami, 20,000 individual points of light showed up to help. And when I interviewed the government afterwards, for them, it was just overwhelming. Pakistan, the clusters actually worked, and I think when they work, they're very helpful. But certainly on the ground, Catherine will talk about some of the difficulty. I tried to have a meeting of the food cluster and the logistics cluster and telecom, which we head up. Even finding people, everyone's offices are destroyed. Where is everybody? Where can we find them? I mean, is part of the problem. So we've been trying to do this at a global level in addition to on the ground. Catherine Bragg of OCHA.
Thank you. In order to tell the story of this Haitian tragedy, I think it cannot be repeated enough that this is actually the first mega humanitarian crisis that happened in an urban setting. We've never actually had to face that before. So there are a lot of things we are kind of learning as we go. And it's also a very unprecedented event in the sense that not only did it happen in an urban setting, it was right in the capital, where the nerve center of the government, of major infrastructure such as airports, ports, major roads for any kind of logistical movement would have to go through. All those were destroyed. We also have the responding agencies to normally would be the ones active in a disaster of this sort, themselves being the victims and have suffered losses. This is not just the UN that has suffered losses. Denis already mentioned his staff, and we offer the same condolence, and thank you for mentioning the UN staff. But the humanitarian community, all of the operating agencies themselves have lost either their own staff or have staff that are injured, their own offices were destroyed, computers were destroyed. So making this a responding operation very, very difficult in that sense. But I think despite all of that, and I think it's important to remember, it is really despite all of that, I think in the last 2 weeks, really there has been Herculean effort in order to get over the challenges that I had mentioned. And I think at this point, 2 weeks into the aftermath of the earthquake, I think we can say that we have turned the corner in terms of the first chaotic days of any disasters, any violent natural disasters that we have seen. In the sense that we have now reached, in terms of provision of food, 500,000 people, provision of potable water, 200,000 people, We have at this point 150 medical clinics that is being set up. We're now already moving into the second phase of medical services, not just the immediate one in terms of having the survivors that were injured by the earthquake itself, but now into the second phase of rehabilitation and of injured limbs, etc. There's going to be a huge need for psychosocial medical services as well. That's going to be our next phase going forward. All of that is to say that I think at this point we can say that at least we have turned the corner in terms of the immediate chaotic days. A number of my fellow panelists have asked if I would talk a little bit about the coordination of it, and I think that may be actually an interesting story to tell there as well. This is actually one of the most complicated
If you can
ones.
in about 1 minute, because we only have 7 left. So.
Okay. I'll be very quick about the coordination. There are actually basically three levels. First one, of course, is the government of Haiti is in the center of the coordination. And I think all of the reports in the media about how the government is not in place, too weak to do anything, they are actually in the center of the coordination. Every morning, the Minister of Interior at 7 o'clock meets with the UN and the US representatives every morning for coordination. So there's the government level of coordination. There's the civil-military coordination between the civilians and the military. As you know, the American military is in there now with 15,000 troops. Canadians are in there ramping up to 2,000 troops. And there are other foreign militaries as well. So there's the coordination between the civilians and the military. And then the third level is in terms of the civilian humanitarian operations. And there all of the tried and true methods in the last 5 years of how we have a coordination structure has kicked into place. I won't bore you with jargons with words like cluster or whatever, but in the last 5 years, we've really refined the way how operating agencies combine themselves into clusters of operation, and it has actually been really an improvement over how we dealt with things back in the days of the tsunami response. For example, if you're a private sector company and you say, I have got medical supplies that I want to either donate or to offer for purchase, the first thing we will say is, please contact the lead agency for the health cluster. That agency would have the list of the needs so that we can tell you what is needed, so that you don't send anything that is not needed. And that's how the cluster has been really helpful. Has been a real improvement over the last 5 years. I know Josette has been looking at me. Maybe I can continue telling this as I respond to questions from the audience. How's that?
Very good. What I'm going to suggest is we just take a quick round of comments or questions, and then we'll do one last round with the panel. But I want to introduce Robert Greenhill, who is a leader here at the World Economic Forum, but former head of the Canadian Development Agency and Haiti expert who will just talk about what the World Economic Forum is doing. And then maybe a quick round of 30-second comments and a quick goodbye round from the panel.
Thank you, Josette. I'm sorry I wasn't able to be here at the beginning. We actually had in parallel another session on Haiti as well. And that's actually an indication of just how determined we are that we use the global convening power of the World Economic Forum to really continue to focus the world's attention on Haiti, not just in terms of what to do now, but maybe what to do for the future. And the theme of this year is Rethink, Redesign, Rebuild. We also hope we could rethink the way we can make a difference in the short term, how we redesign our engagement in the long term, and actually help the Haitians rebuild their country. And I just have to salute the extraordinary work done by the NGOs and the international organizations, but also to an unparalleled extent the private sector and individuals in this. And this has been an unparalleled disaster, an unparalleled challenge, but it's actually so far led to an unparalleled response. Today's a session that indicates that tomorrow we'll be talking about a longer-term engagement to help with the longer-term economic rebuilding of Haiti as well. So thank you.
Comments, and do we have mics or just? So here, and there. Mercy Corps first.
Hi, I'm Neil Kenny Guy of Mercy Corps. Just very quickly on the comment, and maybe it'll tee up for the wrap-up on the part of our panelists. I just was in Haiti yesterday morning and just arrived here. I think it's important that none of us underestimate or underappreciate how important it is to stand up the government as quickly as possible. I sat in on that coordination meeting at 7 a.m. and talked to the Minister of Interior, and the government needs significant help on the part of the international community to really be full partners. They want to be full partners. The international community can't be successful if they're not full partners, but I think there needs to be more attention paid to that right now because they've lost so many people and suffered so much, has always been said. Secondly, I just would encourage all of us to remember that those most affected are always the best agents of their own recovery. And to the degree that we engage the Haitian people and empower them in the planning, in the work, it's amazing to see already in the private markets what Haitians are doing in terms of cooking food, of buying food, of organizing co-ops and so forth. And they are the strongest partners and allies that any of us will have, both in the short term, but even more importantly, to lay the foundations for, real building back better.
And great work Mercy Corps is doing there. Can we pass that mic back? Simon Maxwell's chairing a session tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. on Humanitarian, and he's going to focus that on Haiti. Certainly many of the events are going to be refocused on Haiti, 9 a.m. Simon Maxwell, look it up on the sched.
I'm Bill Loris, the head of the International Development Law Organization, one of the sister international organizations in Rome. In the tsunami situation, we worked very closely with the government to help them resolve some of the critical legal issues and the legal wreck that was left behind the tsunami. And we're going to be doing that in this case. Is that relevant? When? What's the cluster?
Just as you're passing it back, I will say, to even find room for me to pitch a tent, I don't know, your experience was hard. We had probably 700 humanitarian workers using one shower, and there's no food. So one thing that we really all have to be very conscious of is the load and when. But there is a legal wreck there on just every level.
Jonathan Reckford with Habitat for Humanity International. Just come back from Haiti and applaud the efforts. One of the things that I think is missing and we desperately need in the government coordination is decisions about how land is going to work, because there are going to be hurricanes, there are going to be problems, and we've got to move towards durable shelter, not just tents, as fast as possible, and obviously a breathtaking need. And so
how many could you build? How fast?
We've got some big numbers I'm not ready to go public with. We're obviously very active in the shelter cluster, but if the resources are there, we can mobilize quite quickly.
I'm in the private sector. I'm with an investment bank, Jeffries and Company. We raised and sent several $1 million, and one of the questions we had was, to whom? And a lot of the discussion so far is like the immediacy of what's going on. But for those of us in the private sector who aren't actually knowledgeable, it's not our day job to do this. If you've got a check with a couple of commas in it and you want to send it somewhere that's going to have the most immediate impact, how do you decide? And we ended up just going with big brands because we didn't know any better. And so there's a communication issue somehow, or an underwriter's lab seal of approval or something that would be helpful to us in the private sector to figure out, in this kind of situation, where can we do the most good in the shortest and near term, because our money was available immediately.
Let me answer that coming from the private sector as well. The whole idea of the cluster setup and the combined appeal is to ensure that actually you have the prioritized needs laid out and the organizations who can deliver it against it. So if you go to, each of us have got one of these copies with, who are the different international organizations and NGOs engaged in this. If it goes through there, it'll go to the prioritized needs. And you'll also be able, the other thing is that, and I'd say having been involved on the donor side with the Canadian International Development Agency, we trust the prioritized system laid out by OCHA after the tsunami based on the lessons of it. So Catherine Bragg can give you a list of the needs. She can also show you which are the ones that aren't being met. I'll give you one example. The cash for work opportunity to get people cleaning things up, because it's not actually perhaps as instantly recognizable as others, is almost completely unfunded. There's other areas, there's needs across almost every area, but you can actually see not only the prioritized needs, but where the big gaps are. And in fact, OCHA has that facility exactly to answer the question that you had and we had as a development agency.
May I take
Other
the opportunity?
comments?
If I can just follow up on that, just to give the exact information to people so that you can follow up. If you do want to make donations, the flash appeal for Haiti, the appeal itself is a consolidated appeal of, I think, 14 agencies, UN agencies plus a number of NGOs. All their needs in terms of how to respond to the situation is itemized into projects you can support, and they're prioritized. All the projects are prioritized. The website is www.reliefweb.int. And there you can find the appeal. The other way that you can do this is to go into actual donations without going through the appeal and choosing a project to fund. And it's OCHA online, one word, .un.org/donation to Haiti, one word. I will be happy to repeat it to other people after this session.
Thank you. Can we have the mic here?
Hi, Lynn Taliento
comment,
from McKinsey, and we have a team supporting Partners in Health on their supply chain right now, and we're also engaged in discussions about how to help going forward. If you could take us to the next step, which is if you're a private sector company who doesn't want either to just give cash now for relief or wants to contribute to relief but wants to shape its donation by conversing with somebody about how their skills or how their assets really can contribute both during relief and during reconstruction. How do you go there? How do you take that next step? How should these companies interface with this system that is coordinated but maybe not as transparent to the rest of us?
Is there someone who's just been aching to say something we missed before we go to the panel for closing comments and responses to these questions? Okay. Oh, okay. Can we just go down? You have 30 seconds. Anyone?
In terms of making donations, the gentleman from Jefferies and the woman from McKinsey's probably expertise more than anything else. The Department of Education needs your expertise, like, straight away. And, you know, if you could get there, I'll give you the name of the minister and his email. In terms of the gentleman from Jefferies, schools are needed, and you either fund, you know, organisations on the ground like Red Cross, Concern, or Partners in Health, but I would direct the money and say, this is what I want the money to be used for. The other thing is we don't need more NGOs, for the most part, in Haiti today. And the third thing is the work of President Clinton here in Haiti, when it wasn't fashionable, needs to be recognised, because I think President Clinton has a major role over the next 5 to 10 years in really helping this agenda to be moved right into the middle of Washington and also Europe.
I think we're losing the room, so 30 seconds.
Sorry. Now, let me say we are very grateful for the generous donation of the public, especially North America and the public from the region, Caribbean and the Americas. It's a very, very generous donation, and they came out to help, individually sending volunteers, etc. Now, in terms of the private donation, Red Cross is not included in. I'm not asking for donation right now, but Red Cross is not included in the UN consolidated appeal.
Just very quickly to answer the question, how can the private sector help? First point is cash in the actual relief response. Cash, not goods. That's our general line, with two exceptions. Right now, we're desperately in need of meals ready to eat. Desperately need lots of them. Second one is we need tents. We need lots of tents. So those are the only two exceptions that I would encourage you. Otherwise, cash, not goods.
Or plastic tarps.
Yeah.
That would help too.
Okay. Tom?
Well, very briefly, I think the broad comment that Neil made about the need to really support government capacity here is crucially important. I think necessary short-term measures need to be put beginning from now in a medium to longer term context. That's absolutely crucial. For the gentleman who asked the question about who can spend money best, I could give him a very clear answer, but out of conflicts of interest reasons, I won't.
And I would just say, keep the cash rolling.
Yeah.
Don't get paralyzed. Brand names are pretty good because all I can tell you is Mercy Corps, World Vision, Red Cross, Red Crescent, Tom's group. There's a lot doing good, but do it with organizations that connect with your employees because you want to keep them fired up. And if they're passionate about shelter, if they're passionate about water, if they're go with those things. Last words? Okay. Ooh. Okay. That was a mean look there. Okay. Good. Thank you.
And which already seems to be creeping back into the system. Governments have assumed massive debt to save the system from a total collapse. The same governments are forced to pay billions, and there will be enormous pressure on public goods and services for years to come. This will ultimately lead to higher taxes, reduction in social and public health systems,